Some musicians spend their whole careers chasing the spotlight, others spend theirs making sure everyone else sounds better standing in it. Tommy Detamore belonged firmly to the second group. You may not have known his name, but if you've listened to country or Americana music over the last 4 decades, there's a very good chance you've heard his hands at work, behind a mixing desk, behind a mastering chain, or behind a pedal steel guitar, quietly shaping the sound of records that became genre staples. On Wednesday, the 5th of August, 2026, Tommy Detamore died suddenly at the age of 70. His wife, Sandra Detamore, shared the news herself, describing it as sudden and heartbreaking, and remembering him as, in her words, the love of her life. This is the story of a man who spent a career working just off to the side of the stage and left a mark on country music that reaches far wider than his name ever did. Tommy Detamore was born on the 8th of September 1955 in Charlottesville, Virginia. Like a lot of musicians of his generation, he started out on regular guitar, playing in local bands all through high school and into college. It was in 1976 that everything shifted. He picked up the pedal steel guitar, the instrument that would go on to define the rest of his life, and began studying under Buddy Charlton, one of the genre's most respected steel players. That kind of grounding matters. The pedal steel isn't an instrument you casually pick up and master. It takes real discipline, real patience, and a real teacher to get it right. Detamore had both. In 1981, Detamore made the move that would define his career, relocating to Texas to play steel guitar with Daryl McCall. It didn't take long for the next big opportunity to arrive. The following year, in 1982, he joined the band of country star Mo Bandy and stayed with him for 7 years, touring extensively across the United States and Europe. Those years on the road put him in front of some serious audiences. He made numerous television and radio appearances during that stretch, including performances on the Grand Ole Opry, Hee Haw, and Nashville Now, 3 of the most recognizable stages and screens in country music history. For a young steel player from Virginia, that's about as good an education in the genre as it gets. By 1991, Detamore was ready to build something of his own. He founded Cherry Ridge Studio in Floresville, Texas, and over the following decades, it became exactly the kind of place serious artists sought out when they wanted an authentic sound rather than an overproduced one. This is where Detamore's true legacy really took shape. As a producer, mixer, and mastering engineer, he worked with an extraordinary range of talent: Ray Price, Ronnie Millsap, Johnny Bush, Jim Lauderdale, Doug Sahm, the Texas Tornadoes, Robert Earl Keen, Sonny Sweeney, Dallas Wayne, Raul Malo, Kyle Park, Tony Booth, and many, many more. Some were seasoned legends. Others were rising artists trying to find their own voice. Detamore worked with both, and by most accounts gave both the same level of care. That's a genuinely rare skill set. Being talented enough on your own instrument to earn respect as a performer, and disciplined enough behind the desk to earn trust as a producer. Detamore had both, and Cherry Ridge Studio became the place where that combination paid off again and again for over 3 decades. Detamore's work didn't go unnoticed by the industry, even if his name stayed relatively behind the scenes. In 2001, he engineered and performed on Bill Kirchen's album Poultry in Motion, which earned a Grammy nomination for Best Country Instrumental. In 2008, the Academy of Western Artists honored him with a Will Rogers Award for Record Producer of the Year, recognition from an industry that clearly understood exactly how much of its sound owed something to the man at Cherry Ridge Studio. Between 2009 and 2012, he also stepped back in front of an audience as a featured performer in San Antonio Rose Live. The Classic Country Review held at San Antonio's historic Aztec Theater, proof that even as his career shifted increasingly toward production, he never fully left performing behind. And, fittingly, for a man whose steel guitar playing shaped so many records, he was inducted into the Steel Guitar Hall of Fame, a recognition reserved for those who've genuinely mastered one of country music's most technically demanding instruments. Detamore's death on the 5th of August came as a shock to the community he'd spent his life serving. His wife Sandra confirmed the news in an emotional post, writing that it was with a broken heart she shared that her husband of 41 years had passed. She remembered him not only as her husband, but as a respected creative force in country music, someone whose, in her words, God-given gift for playing and producing music allowed him to lift others up. 41 years of marriage, 4 decades of shaping records most casual listeners never realized he'd touched. That's the kind of legacy that doesn't always make headlines while it's happening, but it's exactly the kind that quietly holds up an entire genre. His family has said they're planning a public celebration of his life to give the wider community, friends, fellow musicians, and fans the chance to properly say goodbye. Tommy Detamore never needed to be the name on the record sleeve to matter. He was the steady hand behind Ray Price's later work, the steel guitar coloring records by Ronnie Millsap and Johnny Bush, the patient producer at Cherry Ridge Studio who helped artist after artist find the sound they were actually looking for. He built his reputation the way the best session players and producers always do, not through fame, but through decades of being the person other musicians trusted to get it right. Country and Americana music sound the way they do, in part, because Tommy Detamore spent 45 years making sure of it. That's not a small legacy, it's just a quiet one. Rest well, Tommy.